afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the 22nd episode of second season of Coffee with Ashish. And today we are really pleased and privileged and honored to have with us a special international guest, Jennifer Tombaugh, who is the president of Talk. I hope I pronounced it correctly. Jennifer, as president of Talk, it's a family-owned US-based tour operator serving all seven continents with more than 170 guided travel experiences and events for culturally curious travelers on land, ship, and river cruises. Jennifer now oversees Talk's worldwide operations, brand management, reservation, ops, global sales, and digital sales and digital marketing teams as well. More than 2 decades of her experience at Talk, various roles have been undertaken by her, which includes Talk Bridges, family travel brand, the redesign of Talk's reservation system, a relaunch of Talk.com, and the formation of Talk Ventures, which is focused on new business development. She also spearheads Talk's partnership with the acclaimed filmmaker Ken Burns and his co-producer Dayton Duncan to form Ken Burns American Journeys. Prior to Talk, she was the group account director with the advertising firm Leo Brunet in Taipei, Taiwan, a brand management in the Coca-Cola Company in Atlanta, Georgia, and a management consultant with Monitor Group in Cambridge. Monitor got, I think, acquired with Deloitte. Jennifer and I used to work with Deloitte many years ago.
Oh,
So we
really?
shared something. Yeah,
Oh, that's great.
and Jennifer is also a graduate of the prestigious Harvard College and Harvard Business School. She is currently Board of Visitors at the Jack Welch College of Business at Sacred Heart University and Board of Directors at the European Tour Operator Association. She is also on the board of the Harvard Club of Southern Connecticut, the International Women's Forum, and the Connecticut River Valley chapter of YPO and WPO. She lives in New Haven, Connecticut with a husband and 4 children. Absolute brilliant profile, Jennifer. I think our audience are all ears to hear from your wisdom and to learn from your experiences. With this, I request Ashish to initiate a conversation with you while I sit back and enjoy my coffee. Over to
Thank
you.
you. Yeah, thank you, Karthik. And Jennifer, like I said, I can't help feel guilty for getting you up so early in the morning, your time. But thank you for adjusting with us here. Appreciate that.
Oh, first of all, Ashish and Kartik, thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm really delighted to be able to be with you this morning. And I actually think that the time of the day is sort of a metaphor because they always say it's darkest before dawn. And so I think both here in Connecticut, but also for our industry, that's sort of where we are right now, just that last bit before the sun comes up.
Yes. And, of course, Karthik mentioned about your company Talk Travel, but I was looking at the website and I like this about one family, one company, one passion, right? And a story since 1925. That's one part of it. And the second underlying thought was do the right thing. And I said, I'll ask you about not only the first part, but also do the right thing in these times and how you manage to do them.
Yeah.
So let's start that off.
Sure. Well, yeah, as you said, it's sort of a small drop in the bucket compared to the great storied history in India. But we are a 96-year-old tour operator. We're the first licensed operator in the United States, and so most of our clients are Americans. More than 90% are, but we also serve about 63 other countries, with Brits and Australians and Canadians being most of our international mix, primarily, well, almost exclusively English speaking, in all of our guided adventures around the world. And I'm the first non-family president, so it's a big honor for me to walk I sort of put a toe in the big footsteps of those who've come before and led the company so very well. But I think because, especially during these times of crisis, being a family company, you come back to what those family values are, and it is about doing the right thing. I think especially as this pandemic started, or as we've dealt with issues big and small over the years, it's always been about coming back to what's right for our guests, what's right for our employees, what's right for our partners. And the trust and the brand value that we have built over those nearly 100 years that have continued to carry on. We knew when this pandemic started that we would make decisions, and some of them would be very good decisions. We hope most of them would be very good decisions,
Right.
but some of them would be mistakes. But we knew that if we kept thinking about what was working and what wasn't, but anchor back on what our core values are and what we stood for and what we believe in, that we would get through this. And I'm, knock on wood, hopeful to say that we're nearly there. Certainly not without some difficulties and some sacrifice by so many. And I will just, I know, well, quite possibly many of our partners in India are listening in, and I just really want to give a huge thank you to each of you for your care and support, and for all of your listeners is just a thank you for being here, but that everyone is staying healthy and safe. At the end of the day, our industry is extraordinarily resilient. We've used that word quite a lot, and yet there for each other physically, but we need to be there for each other emotionally as well. And I just want you to know how much we care about how all of you are feeling, because we want to be able to bring our guests to you, and we want you to be safe.
Yes, and indeed a black swan moment, if there's ever one. That's what
Indeed.
Yeah. But what about changing consumer trends in the market you operate in? How do you see
Well,
it?
it's I think this last year has given us a lot of pause, and some trends that we saw before the pandemic began certainly stay, and certainly some of them have evolved. If you think of that sort of often used Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I think we're back a bit down on the base of that, which is concern about health and safety. At the end of the day, if travelers don't feel that the place that they're going is safe, then they're less likely to travel there. So we have been surveying our guests throughout the pandemic, and overwhelmingly, they're eager to go where they wanted to go before the pandemic. So some of those trends have stayed the same. But what we have seen is an increase awareness about health and safety. So more than 90% of our guests have told us that they intend to get vaccinated, and that they want to show someone that they are vaccinated. And not only that, they want the destination that they're visiting to be, as we know that we're never going to be completely free of this terrible disease, but that it's managed, and that they're going to be safe, and that the people there are vaccinated. So that foundation of health and safety has been paramount. The majority of the questions that we're getting from our guests and advisors now are around that. What are the protocols? What are you doing to ensure that the experience that we have is a safe one? Of course, there's no guarantees on all of that, but there's many things that we've been able to do internally and with our partners to achieve that. So that is sort of front and center right now. And we hope that over time, just as after other crises, whether it be 9/11 or other things that we've dealt with, that over time that might be a bit more muted as the world does become healthier. But there are other trends that continue. People, again, we've seen more than 85% of our guests book the same trip as they've transferred to future years, stay with the same trip that they booked before. So people have a mental bucket list, a place that they want to go. We've also seen a continuation of a trend of small is big, if you will.
Yeah.
And we saw that before March of last year because of overcrowding, of over tourism. We heard that word a lot. I don't think we're going to be hearing that a lot in the future, but people wanting places where they have more experiences. So people are looking to roll up their sleeves, be more immersive in a destination. Now, small is big is that, but it's also traveling with a smaller group and avoiding the crowds in a way that not only provides exclusivity, provides a feeling and a bubble of safety.
Yeah, right. Since, all the countries and all of us have probably been hit around the same, as we say, all in the same boat. So one of the comparisons one keeps doing is how's one destination reviving over the other, and that's something we want to know. So having operated in 7 continents, so to say, so how does Egypt compare with Kenya and Morocco, with South Africa, or with Tanzania? How do you see the pipeline?
For our guests, the number one destination is Europe. And then after that, as we look into other, and I think that's largely because Americans not solely certainly, but have had either a love affair or a genealogy connection with Europe, and its proximity makes that top of mind in terms of their outbound destination. As we look at other destinations around the world, again, it becomes very much a personal preference, but that first criteria is going to be safety. So even now, as we look at what's possible to open, every Thursday we meet and we go through a list of all of the itineraries that we can run globally. And we look at what is possible to run and where is there demand. And so part of course, the possibility of running is based upon where borders are open and where there are protocols and where the US State Department is saying that at least it's not a level 4, which is the highest, which is do not travel. So we don't go to a destination that's a level 4, but we are willing to go to destinations of level 3 because that's sort of the rest of the world at this time. But even in places right now, let's give Egypt as an example, where it is open to US travelers and Americans can go there. There's still a perception in the consumer mind that there's still a safety concern. And so even though we've had trips that could have operated in March of this year, we've needed to cancel those because the guest wasn't quite ready.
Right.
Now, the good news is here in the United States, there's a lot of feeling that by late spring, the majority of the population will be vaccinated. And so that personal sense of security will increase, and therefore Americans will be more likely to go. So back to your question, it's an issue of where is it possible to operate? Where is there a perception of safety? And I tell every single country marketing team that I can talk to communicate that out loud and clear. So use social media, use your email outreach, use that database, use campaigns to provide that reassurance to the American traveler, because that's going to be the first, again, that first criteria. And then after that, it becomes very, very personal. Yeah. I love Morocco. I'm dying to go to Egypt. I've been fortunate to travel to India a few times. I'd love to return. It really becomes then an issue of preference, where have you been, where you've scheduled, and what you've heard from others. You know, with our guests too, 20% of them travel with someone they've met before. And I'm always amazed at the discussions that happen in our group settings where guests are exchanging, well, have you been to India? Have you explored the pyramids of Egypt? Have you been to Australia yet? And so it sparks all of these ideas about where people might want to go.
Right. You mentioned earlier on about small being big, and I want to talk more about the revival pipeline for fully guided tour. First of all, what percentage of your own programs would be fully guided versus non-guided?
Oh, sure. Sorry, I should have clarified that from the beginning. So we are fully guided.
Okay.
So when Arthur Tauk started that company in 1925, he said, all I want is a congenial party. Travelers, of like-minded travelers who wanted to explore the world and have experiences they couldn't easily do on their own. So we are very lucky and blessed to have a whole team of amazing Tauk directors. Actually, a couple of them just joined our weekly town meeting last week. And it was so nice to see their faces. I miss them so much. We normally bring them together once a year, and we did so last February at this time. And obviously we've had to do that all virtually this year, but they are incredibly enthusiastic, smart, very well educated, very diverse group of passionate travelers themselves that love to care for people. We just actually watched a video at our town hall this week, and overwhelmingly it was about what they miss about guiding and seeing. They miss the Tauk guests. They miss showing their destination to them. They miss caring for other people. I think we're all in this industry because we have a sense of service to others. And they very much are eager to invite all of our guests back on those group experiences so that they can show them the world and their world, and those are hidden stories that are part of all of that. Of our guided experiences, increasingly we're seeing a growth in smaller group experiences. And I would say that that's compiling now about 40% of our travelers, and that's going to increase. We also launched, as a result of all of this, private departures, because sometimes I'm sure you have a group of friends that you've been sort of that are in your bubble, that you've stayed close to throughout all of this, and now that bubble wants to travel. And so you have your bubble that you can wrap in another bubble of talc and add that additional layer of comfort and care. So we've seen a pickup in our private departure offerings as well.
So how large is large and how small is small in terms of the guided
good
tour?
question. So with our average group size, depending on where in the world we're traveling, it can be anywhere between, let's say, 32 and 42. That's a big group. A smaller group would be probably in that 20 to 26 range. With our private departures, we'll go down as small as they want. There's obviously, it gets more expensive the smaller you go, but we've been trying to work with different groups to make that affordable for them. But that average size is probably around 10 or 12.
Right. I was fascinated to look at some of the Antarctica program with your partners you have for ship there. How large are those programs normally?
So again, in that case, the partnership that we have is with our great, well, actually 30-plus-year partner, Ponant. And they exclusively run on small ship cruising. So again, you hear that word small coming into play. So in the Antarctica trip, I think now with those ships, you're working with about a little over 100, 150 passengers on board. So what's beautiful about that too is that everybody can disembark at a certain destination. You have that more private experience with the naturalists, and you're able to have that one-on-one experience.
Right. Since you've been, at least in India, we've been talking about the internet penetration going through the roof in these times. And certainly internet, of course, for e-commerce is reaching the smallest corner of the country, being a large country that we are too, and of course, highly populated. So therefore, technology and digitalization will play a very defining moment and role in the industry going forward. And you who've been actively involved with technology, what are the changes you are seeing in the future, not only at the front end at the customer, but even for staff management and management of tour operation at the back end? I mean, generally, how do you see it going forward?
Right, it's a great question. And there's a lot of literature out there, a lot of articles written about the overall technology evolution of the travel space. And you see great work that's being done by airlines in the US, for example, Delta here, really looking at ways to leverage AI and other technology to make the homeless for the traveler. And I think that's the important thing, is that it's not technology for technology's sake. It's looking at what is the customer journey like, and where can we use technology to take out the pain points. And so one of the things that we're looking at is, where has there been, for example, a lot of paper in our system, or a lot of additional forms that require that kind of back and forth, and how can we streamline that? So we launched our site now about almost 2 years ago, about 18 months ago, that allows more interactivity on our portals with both our advisor community, because more than 60% of our travelers actually book through a travel agent, through a travel advisor. So we need to create a good portal, not only for them to access their client information, but of course for the guests to be able to manage their personal information. And while we are one of the few out there that really still have a very robust call center, I think when you're at a price point that we are, with more than half of our guests repeat with us, so we have a very loyal patron base, they want that personal interaction. And so while we are certainly investing in our website, we're investing in more electronic documents, a lot of ways that we can, again, take those points of friction out of the customer journey. I think that it's important to stress that personal connection never goes away. And we have seen that time and time again. that yes, AI will get better. And yes, we may have chat functions on our website eventually that, are AI driven. But what we hear over and over again is the reason travelers are booking with us is they want that personal, authentic connection. That's why they want the TAP director to be there for them. Sure, we can have, we can all have our little phones and have an audio hand guided, but it's not the same as and we're sort of looking at each other in the eye here over Zoom, but it's not the same as looking at someone in the eye and really hearing their story, hearing that experience. I see that still I don't see our call center going away ever, because there's those who still want to call and have that connection. And frankly, the way that we have been able to keep the retention that we have for TAP is we have called every single solitary guest that was booked with us in 2020. We've called every advisor that had a guest book with us. And that we saw retention rates double and sometimes triple once we started to make that personal outreach rather than just relying on digital technology touches. So it's important to say, I don't want to dismiss the critical role of digital technology. We wouldn't be able to have this conversation right now if it wasn't for this thing called Zoom, right? Or Facebook Live, or whatever the platform is that has allowed us to stay connected. And those will certainly continue. And it certainly, as we move back into the office, we'll be looking at hybrid models of ways that we can stay connected via these platforms, but also marry in that personal connection. We will continue to look at online booking. It's not something that we do now, but we are looking at that very, very seriously as the world opens more again and we can attract more travelers. All of those efforts will continue, and we will build out our IT platforms more robustly than they ever have been. We actually had the very first tour operator system that was built ever in the 40s. It's a homegrown system that we've added to over the years. So we understand the importance of technology, but it's never been technology for technology's sake. It's never been something sort of cute or clever. It's been about how do we leverage technology to make the personal experience more meaningful, and that we can free up time for the guest and our team to have that personal time with our suppliers, with our partners, with our community.
Yeah, the staff and the customer centers need all the intelligent tools around them to be able to service the customer.
Yes.
But luckily in the US market, at least you have a uniformity of language. I mean, in India, we are surrounded by vernacular because although English is widely spoken, but it's not enough.
Right.
There are multiple languages. So the country as a large, while internet is penetrating the deepest corner, I think the country will soon be struggling with putting voice and vernacular and all that in place to be able to deal with the customers when they.
It's a huge effort, and I applaud all of those masterminds who are thinking that through.
Yeah, I mean, it's like dealing with the entire Europe together, with somebody being based in Spain and another being based in France. I mean,
Right,
it's
right.
as good as that. So, but I think what will evolve, Jennifer, at the end is I've always maintained that COVID has been the greatest transformation officer, something which we've not or hadn't had the desire to pull through in years. We will now make it happen in months, perhaps, because at the end you have no choice left, literally. And another thing we're doing, and I'd like to know what the US is doing and the US travel industry, is the innovation-based startups in the travel industry. We are, of course, as a body, we are, of course, as an entity, trying to encourage entrepreneurs to come in to be able to solve the pain points which probably the larger people may not be fast enough to be able to adapt and move to. So what's happening in the normal ecosystem of startups in the travel vertical there?
Yeah, well, it's right now in the US, as I think with most places around the world in hospitality, a lot of it is just in cash management. I think that's where we've all been focused right now with our core operations. But what I do know is there's an extraordinary amount of investment from private equity and other sources going into different types of startups, whether it's sort of subscription-based models, that seems to have a lot of interest and traction around different efforts where people kind of buy in to be part of a community, because we're all seeking community where travel opportunities might be in place. I do think there's a lot of innovation going on in the tech space right now. I think everyone is noting how technology has brought us together. You've seen this certainly through COVID, where you can have, a guide in the Fargo Islands, with a GoPro on his head, someone can sit in their office, in India and tell him where to go and see, and you can have sort of a literal armchair tour of a destination. So I have seen throughout some innovation in that regard. I also have seen, though, more interest in looking at some existing companies and how those might be transformed in those times. So some of you who may have been around a while in this industry remember the years of roll-ups before 9/11, and it's interesting, that nothing new is under the sun. Some of that conversation is coming back again, sort of how do you integrate the core base of existing travel. One of the hardest challenges, obviously, is building out awareness and a loyal following. I think the digital platform, and where we're all spending our time right now, has given us a lot more choices about how we do that. It's a question about trust, because I think in addition to the growth that you've seen in the digital platforms, there's also been, I think, more, particularly here in the US, given what we've gone through in the last few years, more skepticism about what is available online.
Right.
And so it becomes the importance of the brand becomes very important. The importance of the brand elevates in the mind of the consumer too. So when you come to entrepreneurship, I think you're going to see a ton of investment in tech. I think you're going to see a lot of capital infusion going into some existing companies through private equity. And then I think you're going to continue to see some consolidation, both in the tour operator space and the advisor space, as folks kind of think that out. I think the entrepreneurial opportunities are more in applications as it relates to enhancing the guest experience. And again, that front end and that back end experience that you can bolt onto the tour itself. I know there are a lot of ideas and really great ones out there about how do you leverage online experiences to create a revenue stream. I think that there's some there, but I think that it's never ever going to replace the actual physical being there that's going on, that people really want to get back to. I will also say that there's an exciting amount of innovation that is happening right now that marries how I started with the health and safety, but what you talked about with the technology innovation, and that's related to health passes and health passports.
Yeah.
And I think everyone's trying to figure out, how do you get what's on a piece of paper that says I got vaccinated into a global system of mutual recognition to allow borders to open. And so you've seen 20, 30, maybe more that could be more than that I'm aware of, companies out there that are trying to figure out that common platform. It's a classic new entrant situation where you have a very specific urgent need, a ton of entrants flooding the market, being funded in different ways, creating different alliances, and how that evolves into something where we can all feel comfortable using as we travel again is going to be something really interesting to watch. But that's an exciting space right now.
Right. So from technology, let's move on to something more exciting, like your luxury private yachts, river cruises, all of what you do. I mean,
Yeah.
particularly what interests me more, India itself having a huge shoreline. It is both in terms of river cruising, both in terms of global online cruises, global cruises touching Indian shores for heritage, etc. I mean, what's your overall take in this industry going forward, and of course India specifically?
Yeah, so yeah, we do. We have our portfolio includes not only our signature land programs, which is how the company began, but our family programs, which I was fortunate to be part of launching. But the growth of river cruising that we've seen in Europe in particular, and small ship cruising globally. And I wish I knew, unfortunately, I think my crystal ball and my magic wand broke a long time ago, but I think that it's going to be an interesting space to watch. The cruising space in particular is going to be interesting to watch. I think you're going to see a robust return of river cruising in Europe. But as it relates to opportunities in India and around the world around cruising, it's tough because the cruise line was the first to be sort of battered by the negative impact of COVID. And even here recently, we learned that, for example, for Americans, Canada has closed their cruising borders to us until February of next year already. So another year without cruising. So part of, I think, what the cruise lines are going to be looking at is, again, as we all have been, where is the best likelihood for return, and where, therefore, you can create enough revenue stream so that you can continue growing again. So in general, I don't see a ton of new product development in the next year. In terms of destinations, I think it's a lot of going to be trying to restart those places that are tried and true, and then building out from there. I do think there's going to be, though, and especially where there's opportunities, back to that small is big, right? I'm not sure people want to see a lot of that sort of deluge of people coming into a certain city for a while. They're going to want those smaller experiences, both personally and then I think from a community perspective as well. There's going to be a lot more focus on sustainability and how do we bring back tourism in a way that's responsible. And I think in that regard, I think there's an enormous opportunity for the cruise lines, and in India in particular, is how can you showcase the smaller, less traveled, off the beaten path experiences. We've been fortunate to be operating. This is our 15th year operating in India on our land program. So this is a nice anniversary to have. And I think as we move forward, whether specifically with our small ship cruising experiences, we do look at India and we look at those, again, those off the beaten path, unique experiences that most folks can't get on their own. And I know India has that in spades.
Yeah. Sometime in the mid 90s, of course, the whole of 90s, I did do a stint with Princess and Piano Cruises to set up there in India. So, leaving aside the quality of the cruise ports and so on, there's enormous opportunity. But, we in India seem to be pretty cynical ourselves about not having done enough to explore India as a potential holiday destination. I don't think we have done enough. We do believe in it ourselves. How do you see it sitting outside India? Do you think India's missed out somewhere, lost out somewhere?
I think I don't know if it's missed out. I think it's sort of like any traveler. You go where you're comfortable and familiar first, and then you start exploring out. And we see that overall and one of the reasons we've grown our product line in India is that everyone, when you first go, you want to try and see it all, right? And so, of course, you can never see it all, but you try to get an overview of a destination. It's a little about going to college, right? You want that overview introductory course, and then you want to go back and you want to explore more deeper into a specialty. And we see that more with India too, where folks may have done an overview with our Portrait of India program the first time, and then do a deeper dive into Northern India the second time, or understand or visit the South like that. I've been fortunate to visit India 3 times, but I've never been. And I want to go stay on a houseboat. I want to go explore the South. Right. But that even sounds primitive or sorry, basic relative to so many other places that I know that India has to offer. So I think it's just a matter of time as travelers start exploring again. I think overall India tourism does a very nice job showcasing the wonders and the mystery and the magic of your destination. And I think for American travelers, it's important to do that. But again, start with a message around health and safety, and that it's a good place to go. What we see, unfortunately, in the U.S. is often around pollution or around overcrowding or the question about COVID, because you don't hear India, right. Which is an opportunity, because it's not good or bad, you just don't hear, right? But sometimes now people assume the worst. And I think that positive messages about, again, health and safety, about what a delight it is to travel now. While this is a great time to be traveling because of the lack of crowds, and getting into off those beaten path destinations remains a huge opportunity to showcase your great country.
Right. Well, it's been wonderful chatting up with you, Jennifer, this morning. Sorry again to have got you out so early. Let me just check if Karthik is still around. Karthik and Jennifer, I like the snow behind you. I can see it, and enjoy the rest of the day, and of course the weekend. Right.
Thank you, and thank you again for the opportunity. I'm really grateful for both you and to Kartik for this. And see, the sun is starting to come up now, so that I think that's again an appropriate metaphor for where we are.
Right. So, Karthik, on to you if you want to conclude.
Thanks, Jennifer. We've got one question with one of our audience members, Shivash, who's asking. I think we've covered it partly, but if you have any overarching comments, Shivash is asking that what are the broad changes you are seeing in the supply side of the landscape? So, any broad comments you want to summarize?
Sorry, yeah, you broke up for just a second. I didn't hear you. Could you repeat the question, please?
Yeah. So the question is that any broad supply landscape changes you see on the supply side?
And in terms of supply landscape, do you mean, and I'm sorry, the connection's going a little poorly here, but do you, I'm going to assume, and then you can correct me if I'm wrong, that you mean in terms of new partners that we might work with or how new partners might come online. Or you might mean the distribution. So I'll hit on both of them quickly, and then you can tell me if I'm still wrong. But we are, while certainly we, from a supply partner perspective, we contract out a couple years in advance. So we are already selling into not only 2021, but 22, and we're already getting requests into 23. So as new partners come online, we always advise, start talking to us now. And we always are looking for either new product development opportunities or new destinations that we might want to consider, or again, we're always looking for what is undiscovered. So it might be a wonderful activity or a certain restaurant or a new site that's been discovered or that people don't know about that has a great story, or a family that has a great story that we might do a visit with. So those conversations should be happening with our product team all of the time. And I know I know they do a terrific job scouring and looking. And so if you can feed us anything on that side. As it relates to the other side of that, of how we might source our guests, this is where I do think, Ashish, you're right about the digital opportunity there. And we know, I think as there's obviously been a huge amount of innovation of driving more interested travelers online, but a trusted source, particularly with the advisor community. And we've heard about the demise of the travel advisor in the US here for quite some time, and nothing could be further from the case. I mean, you have certainly seen some consolidation, and that is certainly continuing, but especially with back to my point about the ubiquity of information right now. And frankly, it's a little overwhelming. I think it's an average of 50 different sources of information, sometimes up to 150 sources of information people are tapping into before they're trying to decide on where they're going. And it's overwhelming for anyone. And so you just want someone to tell you, okay, what's right here? You know me, what am I going to enjoy, right? Because there are choices for everyone. And a travel advisor can be very, very helpful there. So, but what we see is more digital marketing, and that's where we've frankly had to pivot to. When you look at innovation and things that will continue on, we've leveraged virtual tours, and we've leveraged stories from the road to help drive guests. We've also done broadcasts. We did one just a Thursday with our great partner in Bratislava who did a walking tour. 70% of the attendees on that live stream were new to TAUG. And so I think digital will be leveraged in that sort of way. But fundamentally, I think they're going to come through probably more an online channel of booking through those, especially those who might traveled with us before. But for us, it's the personal touch and the travel advisors overall.
Great, thanks so much. I think
Did I answer your question? I hope I don't. If I didn't, please ask me something.
Am I allowed to ask a question to Jennifer?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Jennifer. Very happy to see you here, and it's my first time to talk to you. I'm Siavash, based in Germany, Bavaria, south of
Munich.
Yeah, yeah.
Munich. Oh, grüß Gott.
Grüß Gott. Good. And so I am myself a licensed guide in Germany since about 20 years. And my company, GGS, is supplier, European supplier for companies like wholesalers like G2 Travel, Cooni, Mickey, or in old times GTA, now hotel beds as well. So how, it was always a question for me. I saw a lot of your groups in Munich always. And the bus of the British Schneider with talk tours and so on. So how we can offer our services? We cover with local professional guides in every European city, not only big cities, also all those romantic German cities and outside Germany as well. So how we can come back to you so with our products, meet and greet at all the airports, all the piers, and guided tours, thematic tours, or classic tours, full day, half day. So we cover all these services on a very professional way. So with those brands, G2, Cooni, since years, I am working. How we can come to you and to, maybe to work together.
In general, and so our overall philosophical approach is to work as direct as we can with the supplier. In some cases, though, it doesn't make sense to, or there's an exclusive experience or a service that, like a meet and greet, that allows us to enhance our experiences. But so the best way is simply just to talk to our product teams, because again, they're always looking at that. And if you want to reach out to me afterwards, I'd be happy to connect you with our product teams in Germany.
Shall I write you in LinkedIn?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I will do that. Thank you very much.
Great.
No problem.
Thanks, Shivash. And thanks, Jennifer, again for being, I think it was very refreshing to hear your comments, and you've been very kind. And a lot of positive vibes have emanated from this conversation. So thanks so much. Thanks, Ashish, as always.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
all our audience
Bye-bye.
members. And
Thank you so much. I hope you all stay safe and well, and I hope to see you in person soon. I really am grateful for the opportunity.
Not a pleasure having you. Bye-bye, Jennifer.
thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.